All right. Hi, I'm Tim Martinez with the Columbian here with Josh Hart and Micah Rice. We are 2 weeks into the high school football season, at least for some schools, 1 week for the bigger schools. Really quickly, I mean, we've been to a lot of different stadiums. What's sort of the vibe? What are you seeing from, fans trying to peer over gates, or just sort of the vibe within the stadiums that you've been to? Josh, you've been out to Woodland and Camas. Obviously, the Union Camas game must have been a much different vibe than what it normally is. What's some of your take at what you've seen so far?
It was really bizarre to see such a high-profile game without fans. I think Camus in particular did a really good job, though, of making it feel engaging. The drum line was there. The cheerleaders were really loud. The bench was cheering after every play through at least the first half or so. So it still felt loud. It was kind of hard to tell a little bit that you weren't in a packed stadium. But then there were certain plays, like the game-ending stop by Thurman Bibbins, that sealed the game for Union, and it was like silent. And to just think about how wild that would have been if it was a packed house was just kind of bizarre and kind of put you back into the reality of like, oh, this is still going on. But for the most part, it just kind of feels empty. It feels there's not enough when you're in the stands. There's not that juice that you're used to feeling on a Friday night football game.
Micah, what's some of your impressions?
Well, I was
yeah.
Yeah, I was out at Ridgefield High School last Friday for Ridgefield versus Washougal, and if it ended up being a kind of a lopsided game, so it wasn't as exciting as it probably could have been. But there were actually two distinct cheering sections there. A sizable number of Washougal fans had come and parked just outside of the fence in their pickup trucks and loaded themselves up in the back of their trucks and were cheering on Washougal, especially during the announcements. And Ridgefield, of course, had I would say probably about 50 people, parents that were allowed in, but then some students behind what would that be? I believe the west end zone or the south end zone. And so had that game been closer, I think you would have had an interesting scene of Washougal fans in the back of their pickup trucks and Ridgefield fans offering their support, but it wasn't to be. I was also out at Washougal on opening night, and they had maybe about 30 or 40 people on the sidewalk outside of the school perimeter watching the game, and the cheerleaders actually came over and started doing their cheers in front of them. So it was sort of an acknowledgement about the fans that wouldn't or that aren't able to get inside the actual stadium grounds, still being able to watch. And so I think the people that are wanting to come out and support either their friends or their students or their sons and daughters are still finding a way to do so, albeit not as easily as before.
Yeah, depending on the stadium, about how accessible the game is to watch through a fence. For instance, I was at Mackenzie Stadium, and it is very hard to kind of see in from outside of the fence. There were some people along I guess it's the west fence line parking lot. There were some people there, but that's a long ways. I heard some people cheering from up behind the grandstand, like over to my right, because I was in the grandstand. I heard some people cheering from up there. But it was very hard. But out at District Stadium at Battleground, there's tennis courts that are on the east side of the end zone, and they were just lined with people sitting watching. And there were some Woodland fans on the bleachers for the softball fields to the north who are up there watching as well. So it was interesting. And then the big thing for me was at Hawkinson Woodland game, the Hawkinson band was there, and that just changed the whole vibe of everything. Is that the band was playing, so at least there was something going on when some of the other places that I haven't been a band or anything. And that, as you record and you shoot video and stuff, it's the whooping and hollering that, like when I was at Mackenzie, it was all from the coaches who are also in the grandstand with their headphones, because only the scoreboard operator and the PA guy is up in the press box. So Yeah, it's a different vibe. It's but it's at least good to be out watching a game again. And even though there's no one else there. I mean, part of the fun about covering a football game is that sort of crowd vibe, that kind of big deal, a big event with lots of people there. So yeah, it's definitely been different, but it's just good to have games to go to. I think I went 3 the first weekend, and I went to 2 last weekend. So yeah, it's a weird feeling, but it's still a good feeling.
I find it hard to kind of get instead of the players. Like, football is such a high intensity sport that when you arrive usually on a Friday night and you see the lights and you hear the band and you smell the concessions, there's a feeling that gets you jazzed as a writer to cover that game. I find it really hard to kind of get yourself in that same headspace to kind of write an exciting story without all of those elements there, that I don't think I realized how important it was to setting a scene than when you lose it. And so that's been kind of weird to try to write an exciting Union Camas game story, and it felt kind of empty while you were there, like it was just a traditional like preseason scrimmage or something.
Yeah,
I think you're going to see sorry, I think you're going to see a thread between the teams that are successful this spring and those that aren't. I think one thing that all the teams that have really good seasons are going to have in common is they're going to be the ones that when there's a big hit, even if there's no crowd, that sideline is jumping and whooping and hollering. And I definitely saw that with Ridgefield. That's one thing that stood out to me, is even in a relatively quiet stadium atmosphere, when there was a big hit in that game against Washougal near the Ridgefield sideline, they were jumping up and down like it was a 4th down stop with the game on the line. And I think the teams that really have it within them to kind of fire themselves up and be a little bit more demonstrative and really kind of play for themselves are going to be the ones that really have the best showings this spring. Because yeah, if you get behind, if the game starts to get away from you, it can get really easy to kind of just sort of disappear in a setting like that. So I really think that that's where the coaching is going to come, not just the coaching, leadership, and getting everybody to buy in a situation where you don't have all those external energy factors adding to that.
Right, and there's been a lot of just little changes that are just different. For instance, when I was at the Evergreen Prairie game, they wind the clock down before the game, before kickoff, and after both teams had warmed up and tossed the coin, they were like, okay, we're ready to go. And there was still 5 minutes up on the clock, and they were just like, we're ready to go. And so they just kicked off a little bit early, and it was like, oh, okay, we're going to go a little bit early. All right. It was also different to see. Yeah.
I had the opposite thing happen at my game last week, whereas because of fewer facilities being available, the game officials had to go a lot farther away to use the restroom than they would have normally had to. And so they weren't ready by the time the clock was done for halftime. And so with them not having to be on a strict schedule, they just added 5 minutes to the halftime.
Yeah, I think I had that similar at Seton, that somebody said, why are they putting 20 minutes on the clock? And it's like, well, the refs, they got to go all the way to the school building or something to go in at halftime. So
I will say it's weird to hear, like, Union and Camas were just in the grandstands. Their locker room was just the grandstands. And it's weird to hear John Eagle's halftime speech just right in front of the press box. You're like, you don't usually get to see this. I kind of wondered, I wonder if a Union coach will, be going to the bathroom over here listening to the halftime speech. It was just very bizarre.
Yeah, they had that too at Mackenzie, where they both went up into the grandstand, and I was listening. I could hear Christian Swain talk to his team at halftime. The other interesting thing that I've noticed too is coaches need to be aware when they're yelling at the ref that the refs can really, really hear everyone. And they're going to be a little bit more sensitive. There was a lot of referees telling coaches to settle down at the games that I've been working on the sideline. They're like, hey, we hear you. We don't like being yelled at. And normally they're always being yelled at because they're trying to yell over the band or yell over the crowd or everyone else. And so now that those passions are a little bit more audible to their officials. So they're like, hey, settle down there, coach.
That applies to parents as well. For the teams that are allowing parents in, we can all hear everything you say. It is quiet. Luckily, the games I have been to, like the Woodland game I was at that had parents, there was some really supportive parents. Like they were just cheering on their kid doing really well. They weren't criticizing if he screwed up or anything. They were just like, wow, that guy scored a touchdown. That's so awesome. Like cheering him on. So there have been good parents so far, but we can hear you if you're saying anything about the referees, the opposing team. It's very audible.
Yeah.
And with socially distanced seating, we can also see you.
That's right.
There's no blending in.
I was at one game where the coaches were getting upset about the way the game was being called. And then there was a play downfield where there was or was not pass interference. And some of the fans that were in attendance were, yelling for that. And then some of the coaches had the side to go to the fans going, hey, hold down. They're already kind of upset at us already. So, need to back off here. And so settle down. So it's a lot of weirdness all the way around. But again, it's, at least there's something going on every weekend and during the week as well. So we're looking forward to another busy week this weekend and in the coming weeks. It was weird because I was talking to Rick Steele after the Hawkinson game, and I was like, you're kind of halfway done now. You've got 2 games down and 3 to go, and it's sort of the halfway point kind of a little bit right now. And Rick was like, you know what? Doesn't really matter. We're just out here. We're playing, and we're so thankful to be out here and playing. We're just going to enjoy every game we're out here. So I'm hearing that as a common theme from a lot of players and coaches this year, is that just thankful for the opportunity. So we're thankful.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to cut in there. I'm just kind of piggybacking that. I think there's a lot of teams that are looking at it kind of going along with what's going to make a team successful in this odd situation. I think the teams that are successful are the ones that look at it not as we're playing a lesser season or having a lesser time, but looking at it as an opportunity. What we didn't know that we were going to have this, and so we're going to take this opportunity to make the most of it that we can. And so I think you're really going to see a gulf between the teams that go in this with an energetic, positive attitude, wanting to build something, versus maybe ones that are looking at, we didn't have enough practices, or we don't have as many players as we thought, or everything's weird. I think you're really going to, and this is going to affect the teams in the fall, the teams that are able to use this spring to build some success. I think that, you're going to see that as a springboard, not just here in the next month or so, but possibly next September and October as well.
Yeah, you're right. It really helps us. Coaches can always preach like, we have certain mottos or traditions or certain character things we want our players to have. But this season is really going to put that to the test. Can you do all those things when you aren't, in front of your friends or your parents or whatever? Can you generate that within your own team? And I think you're right. I think we'll see that carry over into future seasons of, maybe some freshman is learning, this is what it actually takes to generate that from within our program. So I think that'll be really interesting to see going forward.
Well, and Bailey Meek, senior at Ridgefield, who's headed to Army, he said something really interesting, I thought, where he said, "I'm a senior. This is my last season here, but what we're focusing on is making sure that Ridgefield has success well beyond this season, and we're building the foundation for that." So I think the programs that embrace this opportunity this spring with that in mind are gonna really see the benefits in the fall.
All right. Well, good chat, and we'll have some more coverage this Friday and in the coming weeks. So keep reading the Columbian.com, and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and we'll keep bringing it to you. So thanks for joining.